If you own real estate and you want your property to be more profitable, then the condominium form of ownership is for you. In our Condominium Master Class, we teach time-proven techniques to do just that. Hi, my name is Richard Palumbo, founder of Palumbo Law, and welcome to our Condominium Law Master Class. The condominium form of ownership is probably one of the most fundamental elements of condominium law and taking property and making it more profitable. With the condominium form of ownership, we can take a property, break it down into a number of parts, and sell them individually. Often, these parts are sold for much more than the property itself would be sold for. Why is the condominium form of ownership important, and how does it relate to what a condominium is? To understand why the condominium form of ownership is an important first step in making property more profitable, we need to ask ourselves a simple question. What is a condominium? The first part of that answer is any real estate that is broken down into units and common elements. But another answer, and a more important answer to the question, what is a condominium, is a form of ownership. So when we ask ourselves the question, what is a condominium? A simple answer is a condominium is nothing more than a form of ownership. Why is that important? Why does it matter? Well, because our law does not allow discrimination against forms of ownership. So let's dig into that a little bit. If we have a multifamily property and we want to convert it to a condominium, there are no government regulations that disallow the property from being converted into the condominium form of ownership because it's considered discrimination against a form of ownership, and that's not allowed. More on that in a little bit. The first step in understanding condominiums is to have a basic understanding of the condominium documents. In Rhode Island, the condominium documents include the declaration, the plats and plans, the bylaws, the rules and regulations, the public offering statement, and some other miscellaneous documents. The declaration is the document that declares the condominium form of ownership and contains some of the most important provisions relating to the condominium. The condominium plats and plans, by definition, are part of the condominium declaration and essentially is a survey that shows the improvements and the buildings on the land itself. We have the bylaws, which are the documents that govern or are used to govern the condominium. And we have rules and regulations. When we think of rules and regulations, a no pet policy would be an example of that. Condominium and the condominium form of ownership offers flexibility, creativity, and profitability. Now that we have a basic understanding of what a condominium is, why the fact that a condominium is merely a form of ownership, and we understand that the condominium form of ownership cannot be discriminated against, we're going to move on to the two groups that can benefit from understanding the condominium form of ownership and some of the time-tested techniques that we've used to help hundreds of people develop condominiums. The first group are land developers, property owners, and realtors. The second group is condominium associations, boards, unit owners, and their property managers. So we're going to start with the developers, property owners, and realtors and walk through how the form of ownership, the elements of prohibition of discrimination, create creativity, flexibility, and ultimately profitability through a number of examples. We're going to start off with a very basic example, and then we'll talk about some of the more creative examples of the condominium creation process. Many people listening today may have or own a two-family or a three-family home. This is often the most typical type of conversion. If you own a two-family home and the two-family home can be sold for $500,000, often if you can break the home down into two units, then the units can be sold for more than the sum total of the property. For example, if the two-family can be sold for $500, often the individual units can be sold for $300 per unit or more, resulting in a profit. We use this technique for homeowners and developers all the time for two-family and three-family properties to take something, convert it to a condominium, and then sell the units for more than you could sell the one building or the two-unit property. It also works with three families and larger projects on the residential side. It also works for commercial buildings. If you have an office building, for example, with a number of office suites, those buildings can be converted and the offices or office suites can be sold to individual unit owners. Other typical applications that most of us can think of would be strip plazas, where we have commercial retail strip plazas and individual units are created and you can sell the individual retail units. It's nearly impossible to convert a two-family or a three-family or a commercial office building or a retail strip plaza without the condominium form of ownership. Why? Well, let's think about our zoning and subdivision laws. How do we draw subdivision lines horizontally through stacked units? How do we divide commercial retail strip plazas with the subdivision laws that require setbacks and different requirements that are not applicable to the condominium form of ownership? We're going to speak about some of the less typical condominium forms of ownership and developments as well, and then we're going to get into a bunch of we'll get into some discussion about specific type of projects that really can flourish on using the condominium form of ownership. Oftentimes, when we think about hotels, motels, and inns, it's an overlooked condominium development potential. We've worked with hotel owners, motels, and inns who are looking for a profitable exit strategy, who simply convert the hotels, motels, or inns into individual hotel, motel, or inn-type units. We've also worked with owners of parking lots and parking garages, storage facilities, a docominium, or a yacht club, where we attach parking spaces or lockers to the associated dock space. So instead of renting a dock space, you can own the dock space through the condominium form of ownership. The condominium form of ownership is often used by housing developers and PUD developers, planned unit developments. The common elements of planned unit developments and the individual pad space or the individual commercial side of it can often be condominium land units, which are then developed along with the residential units. Most of the developments today have some component of the condominium form of ownership, including single-family housing developments, because we not only can use the condominium form of ownership to as it relates to multifamily and buildings that are in existence, we can also use the master land unit concept as it relates to land unit developments, which offers the ultimate flexibility and creativity for the developer. Another group that the condominium form of ownership and condominium laws is important: condominium associations, boards, unit owners, and their property managers. Condominium associations are made up of condominium unit owners who vote board members to govern the condominium association. We often can help condominium associations, their boards, and their property managers with a number of different aspects within condominium law. We're going to start with governance and management. Well, the governance and management is just that. We have some governing principles for the association when they elect their board members and when the board members conduct meetings for the board and for the unit owners, and when they vote to amend documents, to implement assessments and special assessments, to pass budgets, when they decide which vendors to hire, which property managers to hire, and how to govern and manage the condominium association. Some of these tasks that the board and or the property manager would be assigned to, and we regularly work with these types of people in these areas, are collections. What do I mean by that? Collections of condominium assessments. In Rhode Island, we have the ability to collect condominium assessments using the super priority lien under the law, and this makes it very attractive for associations because it puts real teeth in the collection process and enables the association to collect outstanding monthly assessments without judicial intervention. Notice of violations, covenant hearings, and fines is another tricky area that associations, their board, and property managers have to work through. If a unit owner is not acting in accordance with the condominium documents, then the board has the right to send a warning notice, to send a notice of violation, to hold a covenant hearing, and if the unit owner is found to be in violation of the condominium documents, this could result in fines and legal fees and liens being placed on their unit. There's also a lot of common issues and questions that board members have. A lot of these questions surround the governance and the collections and the notice of violations like we just discussed, but there are other issues as well. Who's responsible to maintain and pay for the maintenance of common areas and common elements? Who's responsible to pay for and maintain the limited common elements? What happens with certain requests for pets and pets policies? How do we amend the condominium documents? And these are all issues that we can regularly assist with.
When it's time to convert and make your value show, your condo law guide is Palumbo.